Welcome to the Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast. I'm your host, Gwendolyn Mitchell, founder and CEO of Moyo Institute and lifelong spiritual seeker and energy worker. Here for thoughtful conversations about health, healing, and happiness by, for, and about Black and African American women. Disclaimer, the Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast does not provide medical advice. The opinions, experiences, and insights shared are for informational purposes only. Nothing shared in this podcast is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other healthcare provider. Don't disregard or delay seeking it because of what you've heard on this podcast. Thank you. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Welcome to the Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast. I'm Gwen Mitchell, your host. Today, I'm happy to have with me Dr. Brenda Wade. Dr. Wade is an internationally recognized media host and expert. She's a speaker, best-selling author, and major publication contributor. As a world-class speaker and executive trainer, Dr. Brenda has created and led transformational events, making her one of the elite global relationship and DEI experts. Combining science, psychology, and personal evolution, Dr. Brenda takes a holistic approach to training in the art of relationships, both business and personal. Her trainings maximize transformation in relationships, igniting wellness, igniting wealth, and authentic connection and success. As the founder of Modern Love and Relationship Global Training Programs, Dr. Brenda is a powerful training who takes complex ideas and adapts them to her audience, creating an easy-to-understand method for implementation and transformation. And what we know, for instance, is what's happening in our bodies depends so much on what's happening for us emotionally that we really need to pay attention to all of these areas in order to experience well-being, health, and happiness. So, Dr. Brenda, thank you so much for being with us today.
It's my honor to be with you today. Thank you, Gwen, for having me here. I love everything that you've said about love letters to our bodies, and I can't think of anything more crucial than the connection you just made between how we feel emotionally and how we feel physically. But there's even more to that, as I know that you know, which is that we work on what I call the 4 quadrants: body, emotions, mind, and spirit.
Absolutely.
And all of those are in tune, then we're beginning to optimize
Wonderful.
our well-being.
So let's have our listeners get to know you a little bit better. I'm sure many of them already do. As a scientist, a licensed psychologist, and a spiritual teacher, how did those 3 worlds come together for you? And how do they inform the work that you do today?
Great question. You're making me think back to childhood. I'm the second of 7 children. My mother was a teacher and then became an assistant principal. So when you put those 2 together, you're looking at somebody who's got 7 kids at home. And she used to say, I have a classroom at home. I have a classroom that I work in. And as children, we didn't understand. She was harsh and she could yell at us and hit us. And, it was that old school so-called discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to sit and think, why do they do this? Don't they know that hurts? All they had to do was tell me,
Mm-hmm.
or show me. So I think that was the little tiny seed that was planted. It's the first time I ever made that connection. This little tiny seed that made me say over and over, when I grow up, I won't be like that. I won't be angry. I won't be punitive. I didn't have that word in my vocabulary then, but I won't be punitive. And I'll be a caring, loving partner, mother, which my children have assured me I've been. Thank you. But what's important is what happened inside of us as children, growing up in an environment where racism was still very much alive and well. It still is. We've had, don't get me started on the politics. We've had a real
setback.
That's the word I was thinking. I was trying not to say. We've had a real setback, and it's been deliberate. It's been painful and very harsh. So I want to put the pieces together. Our parents came from Louisiana. They grew up under Jim Crow. Where my father grew up, the poverty was so abject. There were holes in the floor, chickens sticking their heads up through the holes, rifle over the broken down fence in the front of the house. All of that because people were just trying to survive. And the gun was there just in case some meat walked by and they could take it out and smoke it and eat it. So that was my dad's upbringing. My mother grew up in the city, New Orleans, flood after flood after flood in the very, very isolated Black communities in New Orleans. And there were people who would drive by in trucks at night and just shoot. So I think when you have that trauma first in the family, the grandparents, my parents, there's no way not to feel it. And what it does over time is it creates chronic anxiety. Chronic anxiety turns into chronic depression.
In fact, I just read an article in Neuroscience News about how harsh parenting causes a dysregulation of the nervous system in the child. And in fact, while our parents thought that we're going to whip these people to make them do the right thing, what they were doing were impairing our ability to regulate our emotions properly and to show up in the world in a way that was more whole.
Yes. And the statistics on what happened because of that, I'll get to in a minute. But one of the things you just said is super important, which is our parents actually thought it was good for us because they said, I'm going to whoop you so that the man, the white man, who was still ruling over everybody, especially in the South. So my parents did what millions of African Americans did. They left the South.
And they did the best they could given the circumstances.
Totally. And my father said, we can't live down here anymore with all this mess. And they got out. So we ended up in San Francisco. So we're here in the San Francisco Bay Area. My mother got a teaching credential. In fact, she already had it before she left New Orleans and was teaching in the public school system here. I have an elder sister who just left the public school system after 50 years, and my daughter. So we call it the family business, being in the school system. And it's about cultivating what we didn't get a chance to cultivate back in the day, which was intellect, and to have the ability to just read a book and write about the story or write your own story, write your own book. And that's why, I turned to writing myself, but with this very strong emphasis that was so close to my heart and still is of how we continue to heal because the trauma doesn't just go away.
And one of the things I would say that I have found heartbreaking since I was a child, in fact, seeing kids being yelled at or screamed at or talked to with curse words. I mean, in the grocery store, wherever, I've always just, it's broken my heart to experience that. And
yes,
even long before I knew as a healing person the importance of that, just in my body innately, I knew that this was wrong. And so it's one of the pains, and it still exists so much today. And it's very, very sad, and it's very heartbreaking.
It's sad and it's heartbreaking. And I didn't realize I was writing for Essence magazine. And Susan Taylor, our legendary executive in charge, sent me to Africa because she wanted me as a psychologist to understand what was different about African people who are still indigenous to their own country, their own continent, and what it was like to be an African American. I brought my two daughters with me. They were very young at the time, but I wanted them to have the experience. And I was interviewing people as we went along, and Essence had sent somebody as our guide. And one of them said to me, "We know why you are the way you are." I was kind of defensive. I said, "What do you mean, the way we are?" And she said, "No, no, no, I don't mean any harm. We know that you were taken from us. We talk about you all the time over here. We don't know how you survived over there." And I have to say, I was floored. You think about us, you talk about us. They said, "Of course. We know. When we see you and all our people on television, we're so proud that you survived and that you're on TV." They're talking about sports and talking about people on the newscast. I had never thought of looking through that lens, that they remembered us and cared about us and watched for us, watched over us. It was like having, I hadn't processed it all the way. It's like having a godparent watching over you. And since then, I've taken numbers of groups back to West Africa, where most of our ancestors were stolen from or bought from. And when people go, it is a healing process. It really
Yes,
is.
indeed, indeed. In fact, I traveled to Nigeria and South Africa several years ago. And one of the things that I discovered in that process was that this kind of, I'm
I feel
sorry, I'm feeling emotional.
I feel you. I feel you. We can't talk about this without the emotion that goes with it. I'm feeling it too. My shoulders have chills running down them.
Yeah, and what I found that was missing from our experience here is that what's referred to as the bottom note, there's this feeling in the land and amongst the people and in the music and in the drums that sounds like
Yes.
hum.
Yes.
A very deep grounding, solid, masculine, fatherly kind of holding that permeates the environment. And that was something that I had not experienced here in this country. And I also felt like when I was there that something opened up inside of me,
Yes.
that having been on that soil, having experienced that vibration, it actually opened up my creativity. I started writing poetry and really capturing a bit of what I was seeing and feeling and remembering.
Yes.
And
The old folks
remembering.
would say, "Tell your story, girl. Tell your story."
Exactly.
And you're telling your story. That's why I've written all these books. I'm telling my story. Because if we don't tell it, we can't heal. It stays inside us and it's suppressed. And I've worked in maximum security prisons. I didn't last long there, but I was heartbroken. Heartbroken. That's why they let me go, because they saw me just like, "Oh my God, no." Just to see, and these are huge prisons with, I call them the cages, stacked on top of each other. And all of the people inside were Black and brown men. There was a women's section somewhere else, but so much smaller. And I knew that our criminal justice system is biased. I mean, we've known that forever. We've known that since the first African put their foot on the ship, even before they got here. And the cruelty, the misbehavior, because for money. And the prison system, guess what? They make a lot of money.
Well,
So
yeah.
having said all of that, that's a thread that we can't let go of, which is remembering, as you said a minute ago, Gwen, what our ancestors went through, that they survived is a miracle, that we have, an Oprah and we have people who really, and who haven't forgotten Oprah. I was in her house and she had pictures, and I don't even know how she got the pictures, and bills of sale
Mm-hmm.
of Africans who have been sold into enslavement.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I will never forget. I will never forget from whence I came. So we can't forget because it's medicine. When we remember, I love that word, remember. We're making ourselves part of our family again. We're
Mm-hmm.
welcoming others into our family who've been separated, ostracized because they were locked up, because they were mistreated, because they lost their homes or whatever it is they lost. And then, okay, I have to go there. The medicine that can heal is not the medicine that most of our people are taking.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about drugs and
Mm-hmm.
alcohol. And those are an attempt to get well and not feel pain.
Mm-hmm.
But it just makes more pain.
Absolutely.
And it's
Absolutely.
harder. It's harder because now the brain is encoded for those molecules, and that's how we can get addicted. So I just want to say to any of our beloved friends and family members and anybody who is, and I mean, is family because you're with us and we
Mm-hmm.
own you. I understand how addiction works. It's what I've done most of my career. But there is another way. And even if you take tiny steps, there are all sorts of recovery places, and you can go in and get detox. That lasts for, the 48 days. But when you come out, go straight to the anonymous programs, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
Alcoholics Anonymous, Drug Addicts Anonymous. We have every kind of anonymous. And it works because people who've already gone through it and survived know the way. And they'll show you the way. It's like having a flashlight. They'll show you the way out of it. And they'll be there for you. So I can't encourage that enough. I love the 12-step programs because it's about spiritual wholeness.
Mm-hmm. One of the subtitles on our podcast is Conversations on Health, Healing, and Happiness. And I
Mm.
think about the health as the physical body, the
Mm-hmm.
healing as the spiritual body, and the happiness as the mental body.
Mm.
And we have to address all three of
Mm-hmm.
those. And I think that the comment that you just made about getting support from the support programs is extremely important and very, very valid. And I was in a spiritual process recently, and we were asked to get permission from our ancestors to go through the process. And I have to say, when I closed my eyes, it's like I saw this whole ancestral line
Mm.
going back for many generations, and they were jumping for joy, you know. And I was just filled with tears and ecstasy, bliss, literally,
Mm-hmm.
at their joyfulness and their role that they're playing in terms of holding a space, whatever realm they happen to be on. And knowing that whatever work we're doing now is also helping to free them because our work is going back 7 generations and going forward 7 generations. And for me, this is that healing part. This is that spirit part that's
Yes.
also being healed in the process. When you talked about the addiction,
Mm-hmm.
what I've taught in my workshops is that Candace Pert discovered the opiate receptor on the brain and recognized that our emotions are what makes the chemicals that connect to these receptors in our cells. And
Mm-hmm.
I tell my nieces, it's not good for your baby to be around marijuana
Mm-hmm.
smoke every day because you're activating that opiate receptor in the brain, even though it's legal in California, say.
Mm-hmm.
No, you do not want that in your household. You do not want that around your small children because you're setting them up for addiction in the future.
Exactly. Exactly. Their brains are being coded with those molecules, and they may not start smoking or drinking or shooting up or anything like that until they're probably mid to late teens, but it will hit.
Mm-hmm.
It will hit because what those drugs do, and I'm not criticizing anyone because I understand why
Mm-hmm.
people turn to the drugs, because the drugs are medicine.
Yeah.
It's an attempt to numb out the pain. It's an attempt to be less out there in the world where it's crazy and scary because you're creating your own world. But it's a world that limits. It limits possibilities. It limits hopes and dreams. It limits your ability to be a good parent or student or wherever you are in your journey. So I have no criticism. I have only acknowledgement of what I know is true. And best of all, there's solutions. We have solutions now that do work. So if you're thinking about how can I find the solution, I will bore you with a list of ways that you can find it.
Mm-hmm. The Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast is sponsored by Moyo Institute Incorporated, a nonprofit organization offering heart-centered educational experiences, and the Lloyd Symington Foundation, which supports visionary grassroots cancer programs. Well, and for me, it's not a criticism either, because I recognize it's an attempt to numb pain. But I also think it's important for people to recognize that all of what we're doing is not only affecting ourselves, but it's affecting those around us, the ones to come.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like this understanding of the 7 generations model, because, what we do today will have impact for not just ourselves, but for those that follow behind us. And this is like top of mind because I've got some babies in the family that are 2 years old and, 3 years old. And I just want to make sure that what's happening with their parents takes into consideration what the impact might be on the long term.
It's hard, Gwen, because some of it has to do, obviously, with all the things we've talked about, the unhealed intergenerational pain and trauma. The other thing is out here, we look at and experience racism on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care where you are, if you're Black and somebody who's white, or even, some of my friends from East India will tell me that people in their community are racist toward Black people because they don't want to be seen as Black. Mm-hmm. So they want this differentiation. And it's complicated. So the one thing that I hope our listeners will take away is that we are not stuck with any patterns if we make the choice to address the pattern. And we start with addressing it. I have a really simple tool that I use right here in the middle of the chest. You'll feel there's that bone. We have our nice, strong breastbone that covers the heart and the organs and helps us to survive. Mm-hmm. But if we start tapping right there on that bone and we activate that little teeny thymus gland under the bone, it regulates the heart. Mm-hmm. And what we want is to open our hearts to ourselves, open our hearts to one another. Mm-hmm. And even if somebody has in your family done something that hurt or harmed you, as old folks used to say, that person is not in their right mind. They have some problems. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing necessarily that you can do, but if you tap, I'm still tapping, tap your heart and start feeling that warmth. Now it's getting all warm. Now we're getting the blood flow. Now we're going to get the hormones of the thymus regulating the heart. And what that does now, I've only done 2 minutes. I've been counting now. I just let my hand rest. Mm-hmm. And I can feel the warmth. And what that does is it brings us into a state of calm, and it allows this brain, first brain, right? Second brain, first brain is the gut. Second brain is the heart. third brain is up here. But we want this heart brain working. And before you give up on yourself, or you go off on somebody else, or you feel lost and alone, activate that brain. And there is always, this is one of the strangest things, but I love it. There is always somebody. And I say somebody that God, or whatever your word is for the Most High, has sent to you to help you through what you're going through. But once you activate that with your heart, that person or that place will show up for you. It will. I've had it happen for me. And I always tell people that I'm working with, that person is out there. For now, I'll be your person if you want that. But there's somebody waiting who wants to help you on your journey. You can find them, whether it's 12-step programs, church, going out on the baseball or the football or the whatever field you like to be on, basketball, some place where you're activating that power that is positive and benign and at the same time powerful.
Beautiful, beautiful. So thank you for that. I feel like, when you open, you just allow yourself to be on the same frequency that help is on. And that is one of the reasons why it's so easy to access. So let me ask you about the body relationship connection. You've said in that relationship breakdown is the number one cause of anxiety, depression, and health issues. For someone or for women who are navigating a cancer diagnosis, that relationship stress can be both a backdrop and a present reality. What do you see happening in the body when love and connection are wounded?
When love and connection are wounded, we lose some of that power. Our body has the 7 energy centers, the 7 chakras, and each one has its own power, its own way of activating. And where each one of the chakras is, there's an endocrine gland that's releasing the hormone that gland can activate to keep the body healthy and keep us moving forward. But then we have that part of us that's also the brain. So I would say, if there's one thing that I would recommend and I do it every morning and every night, meditate, sit quietly and tap your heart. So you're activating the heart and the thymus gland. Keep that going for as long as you want. But in that process, see and feel with your heart, with your head, with all of your body as much as you can, what it's like to feel alive in a positive, loving way. What other people say is none of my business. What other people do, not my business. My business is activate my heart, hold my heart, keep my heart open to myself. And after it's healed more, then I've got more heart to share. And if you have children, you have to do that work. You have to do your work so you don't harm them and make the next generation suffer. So we are, those of us who have family members with children, or if you have children, be the one. I had an aunt, my Aunt Emma. She was my person. And I was going through a lot. And she was the one, she'd say, she had lived all over the world, Japan, Germany, as a teacher who had come from, I think it was Mississippi, one of the southern states. And she was just this elegant icon. And I was like, oh, I want to be like Auntie Emma when I grow up. And she saw something in me and just pulled me to her. She was my person. So we can all find a person. It could be your guru, your minister, your grandmother, your mother, a sister or brother who's doing well, or an aunt or uncle. But please find someone who's got your back and will be there for you consistently.
That reminded me of a person who spotted something in me as a child. Her name was Mother Fisher. And she worked in the spirit realm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
remember being a little bit afraid to go into Mother Fisher's house because I would always hear chains and stuff moving in the background in the closet or something, you know. It was
Uh-huh.
just that access to, I think, other realms. But I recently, a few years ago, ran into a sister who was also her godchild.
Oh,
And we had not seen each other since childhood.
wow.
And she came to take a Reiki class from me.
Mm-hmm.
And when she said, "Do you remember me?" And she talked about how Mother Fisher had healed asthma that she had as a child.
Wow.
And she said, "You know how Mother Fisher used to anoint us with oil all the time?" And
Mhm.
some of these things I had forgotten, right?
Right.
But I thought it was so amazing that here we were 50 years later reconnecting and having that already established
Mhm.
bond because
Wow.
there was a person that saw something that took the time to pull us into the
Mm-hmm.
fold and be a guide and
Mm-hmm.
guardian
And
for
to nurture you.
and for our spirits, you know.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
We can't, when we're little, we can't nurture ourselves. Children try, sucking their thumb and these
Hmm.
things to calm themselves. But having somebody like a Mother Fisher, what a jewel. And that's like my Aunt Emma. Yeah, my
Hmm.
mother
Hmm.
did the best she could.
Yeah.
I don't take anything away, but she had 7 children, okay? And my dad was
That
working
itself is a
2 to 3
challenge.
jobs, and my mother was teaching school. And honestly, I don't know how they did as well as they did,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I know I never laid a hand on my children, and I never would, because I know what that does to the nervous system.
Hmm. Hmm. So research shows that, and you cite this in your work, that divorce and failed relationships are the leading cause of heart attacks in men. And
Hmm.
we know that chronic stress is deeply implicated in cancer progression and recovery. How do you help people understand that the health of their relationships is literally a physical health matter?
Ah, thank you so much for bringing that into awareness, because it is. When I'm working with couples, and I'll do a big couples group or individual or whatever is needed, the thing I'm always saying to people is generate all the love that you can here,
Hmm.
starting with yourself, and then open and share it. So I'll have couples sitting in front of me where each individually is bringing up whatever they're upset about, bringing up whatever it is they're hurt about. But while they're talking about it, I have them
Hmm.
tapping the heart, because the heart will process the
Hmm.
pain, and they're processing it. And then before I know it, the pain is starting to be expressed either in tears or in some other way of comforting.
Hmm.
And once we break through, it's like an invisible wall. Once
Hmm.
we break through it, then it's possible for a couple to sit down and say, I brought some of what I went through as a child into our relationship, and I'm recognizing it now.
Hmm.
I'm ready to heal this now. Would you please continue to work with me? And I have them do a special, little handshake and hold each other's heart. And then make sure that you're connecting heart to heart, soul to soul, mind to mind, with a commitment. I don't have to live out that same pattern anymore.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
don't have to do what I saw my parents do.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think I said this earlier. My father would say to my mother, "Babe, you shouldn't treat them like that." Screaming, yelling, hitting, with those old fashioned telephone wires that were really, really. And I think about how we got through those. And a couple of my siblings didn't get through. They did not make it.
Hmm.
It takes work to do it.
Well, and I have to say that my dad was the one who was quick on the draw. Like
Mm-hmm.
in those days, this was not really going to be the focus of this conversation,
Right.
but this is what's up right now. And so one of the
Yes.
things that I've learned is to go with whatever is
And everyone else who's listening to us, go with what's coming up for you.
exactly.
Gwen, thank you for being present to what
Hmm.
we're bringing up, because if we don't bring it up, we can't do anything. It's like the fifth time I've said it. Can't do anything about it.
Hmm. So, my dad, he would have us go out and take
Pick the
a
switch.
switch from the
Mm-hmm.
peach tree,
Mm-hmm.
and we'd have to get three of them, and they would be braided together. And then he would take his leather shoestring from his Brogane boots
Mm-hmm.
and tie it at one end and wrap it down that braided switch and tie it at the other end. And then he would whip us with those.
Oh, God.
And I have to say that when I was 10 years old, I had an experience where it was just like unnecessary. It was
Mm-hmm.
just the whipping for nothing. And when I
Mm-hmm.
told my mother about it, she set up a new rule in the household, which was that no more whipping the girls. If you want to discipline the boys, that's your purview, but you cannot whip the girls anymore. And I have to
Mm-hmm.
say that there shouldn't have been whipping of anybody, but I'm really
Right,
glad that
right.
my mother intervened and took that step to kind of protect
Well,
us
that you
from that.
you spoke up.
Yeah. And I tell my son, like when he was talking harshly to his 3 or 4 year old daughter, like, no, no, you can't talk to her like that. Because what you're doing
Right.
is you're setting up the expectation that she will be treated with abuse from men,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't have to be physical. It can be verbal. Your voice is too loud. You just need to soften your voice when you talk to these girls because they cannot grow
Mm-hmm.
up expecting to be treated like that from men.
And the same is true for boys,
Hmm.
because the
Hmm.
boys will grow up being harsh and mean because they were mistreated.
Exactly.
You know, my one brother, I haven't seen him in years.
Hmm.
He was like, I'm out.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's take a deep breath. I need a deep breath.
Yes, a very deep breath. And again, if you don't mind, tap your sternum.
Yes, I've been tapping too.
Good. Good. Join Gwen and I, please. Just tap your sternum. Let that heart do its work. The heart is a healer. If we allow it to do the healing, if any pain comes up or sadness or memories that were painful to you, let them come up while you're tapping. Your heart will do the work. Your heart knows the answer. Follow your heart. Listen to your heart. Listen to all those colloquialisms. They all describe the power of the heart. You've got another 10 seconds. And in those 10 seconds, just hold, I am 100% lovable. You can say it out loud or say it to yourself. I am 100% lovable. Last time with a big smile, keep tapping. I am 100% lovable. Now let your hand just rest. Feel the warmth, feel the love, feel the smile on your face because you owned I am 100% lovable. And so it
Beautiful,
is.
beautiful, beautiful. And it's so interesting because I was just about to say to you that, so much of Moyo's work centers on a woman's relationship with her own body,
Yes.
especially when illness has shifted how she sees and feels herself. And this work, Love Letters to Our Bodies, was inspired by my sister who had a partial mastectomy and who was never able to be okay with her new body, who
Mm-hmm.
never was able to accept it. So, my question for you is from a psychological and spiritual perspective, how do we begin to repair or deepen the most intimate relationship of all, the one that we have with ourselves?
Mm. It's a beautiful question. And again, it's giving me the whoof, all this energy. flowing out of my back and my shoulders. And when I talk about energy, in case people are wondering, what is she talking about? It's that something gets activated that's powerful. And sometimes it feels like a chill, like this feels like a chill to me and really like awakening. But we all have that capacity. And Gwen, I love the question. Say it one more time for me. I'm going to soak in it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's like, from a psychological and spiritual perspective, how do we begin to repair or deepen the most intimate relationship, the one with self?
Yeah, because you put spirit and psyche together. Psyche lives within us, the soul, and
Mm-hmm.
spirit lives within us. You know, we are spiritual beings. We are beings with a soul. And the more we relate to ourselves in that way, that gives us a transcendent, a high watch to look from here who I am in the world, not just, I've got my feet, my legs, and the body is working, but what else can this body do? This body can lift us to heights we never felt before. It can open our hearts to love. It can show us the way forward with whatever we want to create, whether it's painting or reading or cooking or healing others or being there to support a young family that needs help or children that need help. Whatever you're doing, you have a calling. And one of my favorite moments was being with a young woman who was bedridden for life, and she wasn't able to speak. And I was doing hospital visits, and I just knew she was trying to say something. So she had a paintbrush with a little feather on the end,
Mm-hmm.
and she, with her mouth, used her head and drew figures on the paper so we could communicate with her.
Mm-hmm.
So there isn't a way, unless somebody's catatonic or in a deep coma, that we can't communicate as humans. And even, I have to say it, even somebody in a coma responds.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a
Because
response.
consciousness is not living in the body.
That's right.
It's actually broader than that.
Yes.
So, what would it mean in your vision for Black women and women of color to be fully, unapologetically loved by themselves, by their communities, and by the systems meant to serve them?
Mm. Wow. That's the coup de grace. I love it. I'm going to take that from inside me, not so much what I see out there, but what my lived experience is. My lived experience is my parents leaving the South, leaving behind the grandparents, most of our aunts and uncles. We had three uncles that over time came out, the younger brothers, my father's younger brothers, my mother's youngest sister. And life was very challenging for everybody. My parents, but especially these siblings that came. And one of the things that came up for me early on was feeling I wasn't lovable because my parents were harsh,
Mm-hmm.
7 kids, trying to, as my mother would say, keep food on the table. And it took a lot of work as an adult for me to begin to feel, and except I had 2 teachers that saw me as someone with real possibilities, and they would talk to me about it. And then slowly, by the time I got to high school, I was starting to own some of who I am. And I'm saying all of this because each one of us, this is the third time, each one of us has that within us. Something that is yours, something you were born with, something that you can activate, cultivate, that you can use to say, well, wait a minute now. I know how to, whatever it is. I've
Mm-hmm.
got the one aunt, man, we used to go crazy over her cooking because she could cook. And we were like,
Mm-hmm.
Auntie, can't you open a restaurant so we can all, go to the restaurant? And she would cook food and then sell it. Folks in the
Mm-hmm.
church would come and pick up the food and give her something for the food. But this is my way of saying we all have possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
We all have ways that we can let our light shine. And whatever you do, remember that you do have the light. The light is your human being. Hu is light. Man means being. We are human beings.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, is there something you wish someone had said to your own body or to the younger Dr. Brenda that you now say to the women that you serve? I think I'd start with lovable.
Yes, thank you, Gwen. Yeah, it took a while for me to cultivate the lovable. It did. I didn't just sort of wake and go, okay, I'm lovable, not with the history and what my parents went through and my siblings and all of that. I just had a reunion with three of my friends that I went to high school with. We talked about what each of us was going through that we didn't know the other was going through back in the day. And right now, the most important thing for me is to do my daily meditations, to when I have something that comes up, write about it, and to be there for anyone that's within hailing distance that needs any help or support. That's just who I am. I will be there for you.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, thank you so much. This has been a really powerful conversation. And it's just beginning because clearly we have several other topics to cover. but
You mean love and sex? We'll get there.
Love and sex. Well, I have a tea that's called "It's Better Than Sex." It's got chocolate in it.
I want some of that chocolate.
But I'll make sure that all your contact information is in the show notes. And I really appreciate you spending this time with me today and your insights, your thoughtfulness, and the power of your being and just being willing to allow that vulnerable place to show up and to be present for it. So thank you, Dr. Brenda. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Gwen. Thank you. You're amazing. I'm very honored. Thank you.
That's a wrap. Thank you so much for listening to Love Letters to Our Bodies, conversations on health, healing, and happiness. To find out more about the Love Letters to Our Bodies project, visit our website at moyoinstitute.org. That's MOYO Institute.org. Follow us on social media and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. If there are topics you'd like for us to discuss, let us know. Remember, your body is beautiful, girlfriend. Love it.